This is a first look at the brand new Ford Raptor R. If you're one of those people that thought the regular V6 Raptor was too skim milk, get ready to have your T levels blown off the charts. With a supercharged V8, 10-speed automatic, and all of the things that made the regular Raptor good, this amps it up to the next level, and it also jacks the price up to around $109,000, and luckily that's pretty much fully loaded. But Jack was able to go to Michigan and talk with some of the Ford engineers about what makes this what it is.
So I'm here at the Raptor R unveil with a gentleman who has a much more impressive jawline than me. Sir, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Tony Greco. I'm the Raptor program manager, F-150 Raptor program manager. I work in Ford Performance.
So you guys finally put a V8 back into the Raptor. Everyone's going to ask why.
Why? So we've gotten that question a lot. Why and why now? So I guess I'd start by saying that we've always been asked about a V8 back in a Raptor, really from the very beginning. You know, Gen 1 had a 5.4, then a 6.2, and then we migrated away from the V8s and we pivoted to the EcoBoost, right? And but we've always been asked the question. You know, sound is one thing, right? You know, there's just a natural thing that comes with the V8 sound, and I think that's been part of it. And then the other part is that, you know, like, hey, could you guys possibly put a supercharged V8, like a Shelby motor, into the Raptor? So we've been asked that question a lot, and so we're finally here talking today about the Raptor R, which is, you know, what we believe to be kind of the next stop in the Raptor journey, and it's we're super excited about, you know, bringing this product forward. It's it really does offer that small group of folks that have always kind of hounded us for you know, a supercharged V8 back in a Raptor, and we're finally kind of delivering to that small group of folks. This is an incredible product and an incredible amount of really skilled folks that work on it, and I'm really proud to be part of that team.
So before we talk about the engine, the power, the acceleration, and what the supercharged 5.2 liter Predator engine does for the Raptor, let's talk about suspension. Let's work our way from the bottom up.
Sure.
So what did you do to this?
So I guess let me just go back for a second, Jack. I will say this, is that we've always thought of power as a core tenet to making a successful Raptor, right? Just like a really good suspension, just like achieving a really good look to the truck. We think about all of those things as ingredients to making a good Raptor, and they're essential to being like evolving the brand and continuing to kind of what we started over a decade ago. You know, to better answer the question that was asked just prior, I want to just make sure that we understand that this engine, right, that we're putting in this Raptor, we thought about it even in Gen 2, okay? But to kind of give the customer this amount of power, okay, we needed to make sure that we did it on a chassis that's worthy of this engine, okay? So to answer now, what did we do? Well, really all of the work on the chassis was done primarily at the beginning of Gen 3. So last year when we brought out the Gen 3, we introduced all of the chassis changes that we made coming from Gen 2, starting at the rear of the truck with the 5-link rear suspension coming from the leaf springs, which the rest of F-Series uses, and Raptor kind of coming off of that architecture onto a rear coil a system. And then, you know, the front suspension kind of redesigning and changing the geometry so we could enable more wheel travel, right? And then once we kind of got into that development, and I'm talking about, again, the Gen 3 with the EcoBoost, right? You know, wheel travel, higher technology shock, rear suspension, all these things kind of lended itself to making the product that we launched last year. The 37-inch tire was another thing that we always kind of had in the back of our minds that finally made its way into production, right? But enabled by a 5-link to kind of give us the package to bring forward that those big assemblies. Once we did that, right, we knew that it was time to start thinking seriously about putting the big motor in the Raptor. So to answer your question, it's long-winded a bit, but I will tell you that in this truck, okay, not a lot was done to the chassis itself because not a lot had to be done. We took the 37-inch configuration that we use for the EcoBoost and we started with that. With that, we have a small rate change on the front spring just to account for the differences in powertrain weight and engine weight. We have shocks that have been, retuned just for the character that is produced by this monster engine in this truck. And that's really about it. We did all of the work for the chassis really at the beginning of Gen 3.
So moving from suspension, and this is obviously a very capable vehicle in that regards, let's start talking about drivetrain. So it's the Predator 5.2, supercharged, identical blower, different size pulley. The output is changed, prioritizing torque, lower down on the RPM band. You have changes to the oil pan. You don't have the necessarily windage trays or baffling from the GT500, but instead you have a deeper pan to deal with tilt, front and rear when you're off-roading. What else was changed other than some of the accessory belts and a small slight change to oiling in the heads, correct?
Yeah, so the engine itself, I mean, you've captured the changes themselves, right? I would tell you that, the air intake system, right? Again, just because you're taking an engine that lives in a Mustang and now you're dropping it into a truck, so just bringing it to a different platform, the air intake system was redone, as well as some changes to the exhaust to kind of make sure that this monster could breathe. So we removed the trombone, if you will, the loop to kind of give the equal length issue that we talked about in the Gen 3 for the EcoBoost. We removed that, so we have pipes that are back more conventional way of a conventional looking exhaust to kind of make sure the breathe. We left the valves in so you could still give the driver an opportunity to still control the mode, the exhaust mode. So really it started with that, right? You have a very known engine, it's a known engine. It's a well-characterized engine. It's developed on a product that is coming from Ford Performance. We know kind of what the capability of that engine is. You start with that. Once you have that, all right, and you kind of get yourself into some prototypes and you have an opportunity to get our very talented vehicle dynamics folks out and you send them out to, test where we test, right, and do what we do, in order to kind of prove out that this is a Raptor, then you start to find out what else you need to do. I think from the very beginning of the program, we knew that the transmission and the torque converter, just to kind of enable all of the torque coming in, would need to change. So that was kind of an assumption at the beginning. But beyond that, right, the driveline itself was evaluated, when we went out and we kind of put it through its paces like we do, just like every other Raptor, and then you start to see the changes that we made. And there were parts within the front axle, within the drive shafts, that were kind of either, minorly tweaked or, some component of some system was redesigned. And I don't want to get too deep into those details, but yes, there were things that needed to kind of change to accommodate the extra torque coming into the system of the Raptor.
So dynamically, obviously, I know we haven't talked about this so far. It doesn't weigh a hell of a lot more than the regular 3.5 liter. It's like 100 pounds or something more than the regular 3.5. Yeah. Where you're going to really notice is obviously the power.
Yep. And that's the other thing too, is that, I'm kind of thinking about, as we kind of begin the messaging of the Raptor R and we start talking to media and, potential customers, right? One of the things that kind of gets lost in the shuffle because we don't talk about it anymore is the 500-pound weight save that came along. When we did the Gen 2 Raptor, we got 500-pound weight save from the platform who went to a aluminum body. And so when you take that 500 pounds and you consider the fact that you just dumped 250 horsepower into that truck and you only gave up 100-ish pounds and you still have that awesome power to weight ratio, right? This truck will be a force to be reckoned with when it gets off-road, which is, again, where we want to compete, where we want to win, where we believe Raptor was born, where the segment was kind of formed, right? That's kind of where we want to win, and we believe that the Raptor R is now kind of pushing the boundary of, like this is the pinnacle off-road, performance truck.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate the time you spent with me, and I can't wait to hopefully
Great
drive one
talking.
of these things relatively soon.
All right.
In conclusion, we're going to drive the truck later, and we're going to have more engineering support, but we know the foundation. They're taking the regular Raptor, which is fully developed as it is, and changing a few things to make it work with the V8. It's giving you more power, the cooling system's slightly different. There's been some engine changes compared to the GT500, namely the biggest thing, you're adding the 10-speed torque converted automatic versus the dual clutch that was on the GT500. So I mean, there's subtle changes, and of course, you're not going to drive the Raptor at high RPM all the time. Like, you're not going to be winding it out on the track. So adjustment for tuning and all that makes a lot of sense. Now, the thing is, in this day and age, is this really something that is necessary? Was the regular Raptor good enough? And I would say probably for most people. But the biggest complaint about a Raptor with a V6 is the sound, the emotion, and this is adding a lot of that back. And as a last generation product like this, before we start moving into hybridization and all the EVs of trucks, I think this is going to be a very special product for those that really want that. And again, it's very niche, much like the TRX was. So we're going to do a deeper dive into this truck later, but thanks for watching this first look.